Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode with me. We are at one of my favorite places in Niagara Falls, and it's called Niagara Glen Trail. It is just so beautiful, and soon you're going to see why. So right now I'm just in the opening part of it. This is the park, so you can see that there's a pavilion and there's picnic tables, but the trail is just further up ahead here, and you can see as we start to approach it that a giant metal staircase actually goes down to the trail. And that's because we're going down on the escarpment edge, and it can be very dangerous. The city of Niagara Falls has seen it fit to install this very, very scary but cool metal staircase that'll take us down the side of the escarpment so we can get onto the trail. So you can see it's all open and there are people coming up. So I'm going to give them a second to go ahead and pass me before I start to descend. But if you look over here, you can see the Niagara River. There's the trail down beneath us that we're going to get on soon. And it looks like it's clear now. People have passed by. So let's go ahead and start our descent. So there are a couple different little trails that you can do down here in the Niagara Glen. Some of them will take you right to the Whirlpool Rapids, which is definitely a very popular one to go to and visit. And that would only take you probably about 20 minutes down there. I'm going to go ahead and take us through the entire loop so that we can see everything that this trail has to offer, which is walking along the escarpment, as you can see right there, and then going through a bit of the woodland part of it as well, and then going down towards the water, walking along the water edge, and then down into the opening where the Whirlpool Rapids are. So it's going to be quite fun, and I want you to be able to see all aspects of the trail. So you can see as I come off the metal staircase, some people are going to go to the right. We are not. We are going to stay and go to the left of the metal staircase. And as you can see, the trail that we are doing is called the Main Loop Trail, which is 2.1 kilometers, 1.3 miles long. So it's not a long hike, but it can get a little challenging just because there are tons and tons of rocks. And there are lots of times where there's steep inclines and you have to go down to get to the river, of course, and then up to get back to the metal staircase and out of the trail. So that can be challenging for some people, especially when it's hot or if it's been raining, because the rocks get slippery. So definitely check the weather before you decide to come on out. But you can see that the trail here is very distinctly marked. We're walking along the edge of the escarpment right now. So that's what this big giant rock to my left is. And you can see the sign here that we're following the Main Loop Trail. So like I said, right now, a lot of what we're doing is because we are actually descending along the side of the escarpment and down to the water. So a lot of the first hike is actually kind of easy because it's all going down. And a lot of these steep hills are actually broken up by rocks. You can see that there are a series of stone rocks, staircases that really help break up the steepness of the hill and make it a lot easier to go up and down. And it makes it easier for a hike, but when it's raining, it makes it more challenging. And you can see that all of these boulders here are just honestly parts of erosion from the Niagara River. So these huge boulders are just naturally scattered throughout the escarpment. They're quite beautiful, and a lot of them, so those are the staircases we just came down. A lot of them have just naturally fallen around everywhere, and some of them even have little naturally made caves and crawl spaces. So if you're feeling very adventurous, there's some of them you can actually crawl through. So we're just going to keep on going down. You can see that it is very, very rocky. Again, we have fallen boulders everywhere from the water erosion. See, they're just randomly scattered everywhere. So it's so much fun to see this because you don't always get this kind of view on a hike. So again, we're going down. We're still following our trail, the Main Loop Trail. just showing you where we are. There is lots of trees, and it's actually quite shaded here. Right now it's about 30 degrees out, and it is super, super hot. And if you know the Niagara region, you know the humidity is brutal, but this trail is lovely because it is so shaded, and as we get closer to the water, you get that really nice breeze, and it just cools you right off. But it is definitely still a very, very hot day, so lots of water is very important. So you can see that the trail is nice and distinctly marked. It's super easy to follow, and even like when I turn the camera back, you can kind of see that it almost looks like it disappears in nature. Oh, let's fix this little guy right here. There we go. Turn him right side up. You can see that when you turn around, sometimes it looks like the trail behind you disappears, but that's just because it's such a naturalized looking area, but it's really, really well maintained. So again, just looking at the beauty of all of these boulders just randomly scattered throughout the trail. You see how they just stack on top of each other, and there's a little crawl space there. For some of them, I'll get a little brave and I'll decide to go crawling through them. But be careful, because if you move the wrong rocks, then yikes, it could be a disaster. They do have other metal staircases like the one I'm on put in sometimes throughout, just because sometimes the terrain is just super steep and gets muddy and dangerous, and this is just a really high maintenance trail, so it's nice. That's what makes it a little bit easier to hike too, because it's actually a difficult hike in the sense that it's very rocky and there's a lot of climbing up and down to do, but then there's a lot of nice staircases that help break up the steepness. So again, you can see in front of me more boulders that have just kind of randomly fallen into place, and it kind of creates like this little dome over top of me, which is very, very cool. It's like going through little mini caves every now and then throughout this trail, so it gets very, very exciting. You see these big giant rocks just everywhere. And then trees. So it's nice and shaded, so you can see these huge rocks in front of me. And this is what the trail mostly looks like. Don't forget, we're on the edge of the escarpment. The escarpment is just a huge rock. So all of these boulders have just essentially formed from water erosion over all these years. And so these just kind of randomly fall into place and stack. And oh, look at this one. Let's go up here and take a peek at the sun and get a nice lens flare there. This really is one of my favorite trails to hike. You get so many different aspects of hiking on this trail because you have all the big boulders, then you have the woodland feel with the forest and the tree canopy, and then you get down to the water as well. So you're really touching so many different aspects on this hike, which is such a unique experience, especially for the short duration that it is. So it's definitely worth it, although you'll see that the climb back up is going to be a little tough. So again, like I was mentioning before, this is one of those little crawl spaces that forms just kind of naturally as these boulders just kind of fall and stack into place. So you can see, and there, I'm about to go into it because I can't help myself. I love cave exploring, and I see this little crawl space. I kind of did a little reconnaissance around it and checked it out to make sure it was safe before I decided to crawl right in, because of course touching the wrong rock or pushing something too much could cause things to shift and move, and that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze through this. It's a little bit tighter squeeze than it looks, but I'm having fun getting through it. You see there's just rocks everywhere, so I'm trying to watch my head, being very careful while still holding the camera. And it was just a very short little crawl space. So now I came out on this side. I'm going to go ahead and get back through it. Even though I'm still on the main trail, I'm just going to go ahead and go through it, and then you can kind of see how it looks on both sides. So right here, as I kind of turn around the corner, this is where the tight squeeze is. I'm being very careful not to touch too many rocks above me by accident. I don't want to shift anything, but I'm going to go ahead and squeeze through. And then you can see again that this opening actually becomes quite big, and then I can just jump on out. So that's where I just came through. It's actually such an easy crawl space to miss, but I just have an eye for them. I'm always looking for them. So you can see we're back on the main trail now. We still got lots of big, beautiful boulders around us. And it's so green and lush right now. We are in the middle of summer, so the vibrancy of the moss and all the plants and the trees are just so gorgeous. And like, look at that. I love trees, so I'm always just in awe by them. And like I said too, it's nice and shaded here. It's super, super hot today, and we still got some beautiful shade. And we got another boulder up here that's gonna, once I get to this part, I'm always like, wait, where's the trail again? Ah, it goes around the boulder. It's so easy to miss this one. So we have a bit of the Woodland Trail coming up in front of us. So as I was mentioning before, there are a couple different trails that you can do. There is a Woodland Trail that kind of just takes you, so of course everything starts at the metal staircase, and the Woodland Trail takes you down and does a little loop through the forest here. So we're going to get to see a little bit of that on our trail now. We go through parts of the Woodland Forest Trail. A lot of the trails end up interconnecting anyway. But this main loop one goes along the escarpment edge and then down to the water. And so you're basically doing a big circle around this area where the Woodland Trail kind of takes you inside of that circle and around. So look again, like the tree canopy is lovely. It's super sunny, super clear skies today, but the trees are helping give me some shade and a little bit of coolness because it is quite hot today. And we're going to keep on pushing forward because, like I was about to say, I can hear the water approaching. So now we are getting down towards the actual river, the rapids. And for the next about 20 minutes of this trail, it's going to be walking along this edge. So you can see how steep it is. So if I was to take the wrong step, I would slide and tumble all the way down right into those rapids. So definitely be super cautious around here. It is very, very steep, and the Niagara River is very, very strong and definitely not something that you want to be swimming in. And what's really lovely about this trail too is there's so many little lookout points that you can just walk up to along the escarpment edge and go and just kind of stand in awe of how beautiful and blue the water is. So of course we have warning signs because it is very, very steep. But you can see that water and you can hear it, you can see it. It's strong, it's fast, but it's beautiful. So like I said, really, really rocky terrain here. It would be dangerous to do this area when it's raining. I'm going to jump up on this rock and give you a bit of a view here. If we keep looking forward, we see the river, and what do we see beyond the river? Well, that's America. So again, I'm just following the trail all the way alongside the river. It gets super rocky. We do get a bit of an incline here. It tends to go kind of up and down a little bit because, you know, it's an escarpment, so it's not even terrain. Like right now, it gets very, very narrow, and see how easy it would be to take the wrong step and slip down. So we're just constantly watching our footing here because we don't want to take the wrong step. And because it's all rocks, it's easy to step and hurt your ankle. Speaking of cuteness, actually we weren't speaking of cuteness, but we are now. Look at this baby fawn. I randomly came across it and my heart just stopped. I was so happy. I always see deer on my trails and it just makes me so happy. I just did a quick few videos to show you because I didn't want to scare it because we're so close to the water. I would just die if it like took off in fear and got into the river. And so here's another beautiful view. Again, there's America in front of us. But speaking of the fawn quickly, the mother is, I'm sure, around somewhere. They tend to leave their young alone quite often to go find food. So of course we don't want to scare it, but it is a nice little surprise to see a baby fawn. All the times I've been down here on this trail, I've never seen deer before. So that was such a lovely, lovely encounter. But I stayed at a very safe distance so I didn't scare the poor thing. So getting back to the trail, of course, sorry I can just mumble on about animals forever. Like I had mentioned before, there are all these little rocky lookouts where you can just kind of climb upon, like what I'm doing right now, and just see how beautiful the water is, and you can hear it, you can feel the breeze. And right now, speaking of hearing something, if you have ever been a tourist in Niagara Falls or lived in the area, you will know what this boat is right now. You can probably hear some of the people screaming. It's kind of funny. So that's part of the whirlpool. I don't know the exact name. They said the Whirlpool Rapids, I think is what it's called. They do little tours up the Niagara River. And it's funny because I live in Niagara Falls and I've never done it before. And I should. I really, really should. But I love watching them. And I love hearing the people scream. It's very exciting. So we are getting closer to the Whirlpool Rapids down in that open gorge area. So you can see the trail is very narrow, still very, very rocky. Again, it's just the nature of the escarpment. If I step out here, see right in front of us there, that's where we're going to head down to. It's a very, very popular tourist place. In the other trail, when we got off of the metal staircase, and I said if you were to go right instead of left where we went, if you went right, it would take you on a short trail right down to that open gorge area. And that's the most popular place, or the most popular trail that people like to do, because the water is such a gem and they just want to get down to it and see it right away. A lot of people will sit there and eat their lunch. It's very, very popular, especially on the weekends. The rocks will be covered in people. So you can see as we start to approach the gorge, the rapids, that there isn't really a trail here. Right? It is considered a trail, but if you look at the whole terrain is just a bunch of rocks, and they're actually big rocks, like that are bigger than the size of your feet. So the reason why this trail part is marked as hard is because of these rocks, and they say you should be an experienced hiker to come down here, but honestly, I've been here so many times and I see lots of travelers and tourists that come down and they're in like flip-flops, or sometimes they're like in business attire and they got fancy shoes on and they don't quite expect the trail to be like this. So of course, if you're planning on doing this trail, just wear the proper footwear, protect your feet, protect your ankles. Your safety always comes first. And when you're safe and you're healthy, you can just enjoy the experience so much more. So again, look, we're looking around just this open space of rocky terrain, again formed from water erosion on the Niagara River. I'm going to go ahead and jump up on some of these boulders to give you a nice view of the river in front of us. So today I'm not here on a weekend, that's why there's not people absolutely everywhere. We do kind of have a bit of privacy here, so I can show you around without so many people around, because I try not to film people. I try to respect their privacy, so I try to do things during the week or on off-peak hours so that I can really get you the views without too many people in the shots, of course. But just look how beautiful it is. So it's funny because it's a little deceiving right now because the water looks super calm coming ashore right now. But I tell you, it is not calm. It is very, very wild. It's very, very strong. So please do not go in this water. But it is absolutely gorgeous, and it's truly something to be admired from a safe distance. And the tide is actually quite high because sometimes I see it where it's much further out and all these little rocks in front of me, you can actually walk out a lot further. But this is as far as I'm going to go, just because I hear that rushing water. I know the strength of it, and I'm not getting rushed down in that river. So you can see in front there's another open area with a bunch of rocks that people like to go sit on. So I'm just going to walk around the back here and take us on over to that other very popular sitting area. Just taking my time here because it is super rocky. You can see there is no marked trail. There's actually not a marked trail at all. This is just kind of as you see fit, walk it, right? That's why it's marked as hard. So just keep that in mind when you come down, if you do decide. So we are over on that area now. And you can see that there's more water. You can hear it and see the water is actually rushing here, even though it seems quite shallow. And there is still quite some power to it. I'm not going to go out too far. I am doing this with one hand because I'm holding the camera. So the camera shook a little bit there. but at least I can get you out into the gorge area a little bit more. You can just see that beauty of a river just coming in. Okay, so let's get you back up. I'm trying to get this video done in under 25 minutes because the trail is actually not that long, and I want you to be able to get in the highlights of it. So right now we're getting back onto the main loop trail, and I'm going to start to ascend up the escarpment edge essentially. So the first part of the trail was us completely descending, and because we descended, now we have to go up, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just trying to be careful because this is also a very popular area for people who like to come out and rock climb. I do love climbing myself, but that's not what we're doing today. But there are lots of boulders out, so I'm just trying to not get them on the camera. I think there was a few of them there, but I'm just trying to make sure I don't show their faces. And again, lots of staircases, so we're just going to keep ascending. Look at the beautiful moss surrounding us, all the lush greenness. And the sun's out. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's not too much shade in this area. The woodland area that we were at about 30 minutes ago on the hike was nice and shaded, but now we're back out onto the escarpment edge. And we're going to keep climbing up, just a series of staircases all the way up. It's just one staircase after another. So even a lot of those fallen boulders and caves, we're still going to kind of see them along the edge here, but it won't be as much as we've seen where it was more flat, more towards that woodland area. This is pretty much just a constant incline uphill. And again, like just lots and lots of stairs. We do have some boulders here. See, again, they're collapsed over top of each other. It kind of creates like a nice little cave-like experience. I just enjoy walking through them, and it's completely safe. Just, you know, don't do anything stupid. I mean, I do stupid things all the time. Honestly, my mom could tell you I scare the crap out of her all the time. So we climbed up all of those stairs. It took me about 15 minutes. It might take you a little bit longer, it might take you a little bit less. It's totally up to you and your experience and your pace. You can see that we're back along the main escarpment edge. So to my left, we have the giant rock of the escarpment, and you can see that beautiful staircase coming up in front of us. So that means that this trail has come to a very lovely conclusion. And as I make my way up this metal staircase, as always, I'm going to leave you with some pictures and some stats about the trail and the hike. So the trail was 2.1 kilometers long. The elevation gain is 94 meters, which isn't actually too bad, and it makes it so much easier to do the steepness of the hills because it's broken up with so many human-made staircases. And it took me about an hour and 15 minutes to do this whole trail. Of course, that was me stopping to take pictures and do the video, and then I sat down by the water for a little bit. So if you're in a crunch, you can definitely get this trail done in under an hour. But if you have time, I do recommend coming down to the water here and maybe eating your lunch. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, keep trekking.